I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My wife Emily and I have been together for about 7 years now. We got married young, right after college, and honestly everything seemed fine or at least normal enough on the surface. We took a lot of trips, shared a lot of good times, and I genuinely believed we were happy, or at least stable. You know how it is, right? You look at your life and everything seems to be in place. Then, like a kick to the stomach, things start to fall apart without warning. This whole mess started quietly. At first, I noticed Emily acting a little off during our last family vacation. We were in Florida, not the best timing, but we'd planned it months ago. Our families came along, and everything was supposed to be relaxed, fun, and just a way to get away from the grind. But Emily, she was colder than usual. She'd check her phone constantly, sneak off to the bathroom. But I'd catch her hiding her screen or quickly deleting messages. She'd brush it off with a bitchy attitude, saying I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, or that I was overthinking again. That's her favorite line when she's caught doing something she doesn't want revealed. You're just overthinking it. She'd get snippy if I asked to see her phone, acting like I was some kind of jealous freak. I really didn't want to believe she was cheating, but I couldn't shake this feeling that she was hiding something. I kept telling myself that maybe I was just paranoid. Maybe I was reading too much into her mood swings, her secretive texts, her sudden interest in not sharing her phone. But that nagging suspicion grew worse with each day. We'd go for walks, she'd be glued to her phone, and I'd catch her texting someone. I even saw the little heart emojis she'd send and receive, and I'd get this sinking feeling. But I kept quiet. I didn't want to believe it was true. Then the trip started to unravel, and I started noticing more signs. Emily would get annoyed if I tried to be close, would snap at me for no reason, and I caught her in little lies about where she was, who she was talking to. She told me she was just texting her sister, but I saw the messages she'd delete immediately afterward. I once saw her phone lit up late at night with a message from someone named Jake, and she claimed it was just a work buddy. Yeah, right. I mean, I knew her well enough to see that she was lying, but I didn't have proof yet. The real shock came when she went for a walk alone one evening. We were all sitting around, and she suddenly said she needed some air. She slipped out, and I thought, fine, maybe she needs a breather. But she didn't come back for a long time. I was annoyed but didn't think much of it until I went looking for her. I went to the hotel room she'd been sharing with her sister, but it was unlocked, something I never would have done before. I peeked inside and saw her phone on the bed, screen lit up, and a series of messages from Jake. What I saw next hit me like a freight train. They were talking about meeting up later, and the messages got more intimate. Things like how she was so glad he was coming and how it was hard not to do anything right then. I saw her talking about how she was missing him and how they'd make it work. It was all right there, clear as day. Of course, I took pictures because I knew I wouldn't believe my eyes if I didn't have proof. I felt this mixture of anger, betrayal, and complete disbelief. I had married a woman I thought I knew, and here she was, cheating on me with my own brother, no less. I spent the night just sitting there, staring at the messages, thinking about everything. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I just sat there, stunned, trying to process what I'd just seen. It didn't feel real. It still doesn't. But I knew I had to confront her. That's where I am now, stuck in this mess, trying to figure out what the hell to do next. The next morning, I knew I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. I had the evidence, and I knew I had to face her. But I wasn't prepared for how she'd react. I waited until she was in the bathroom, pretending to be asleep, then quietly grabbed her phone. I needed to see if she had been hiding anything else. I was already pretty sure this was just the tip of the iceberg. I unlocked her phone, and there were more messages, more lies. She'd been texting Jake constantly, even while we were out on the beach, even during meals. There were flirtatious texts, plans to meet up in the city, and even some explicit messages where she talked about how she was so turned on by him and couldn't wait to feel him again. I felt like I was going to throw up. My heart pounded in my chest. How could she do this? How could she lie so blatantly right in front of me, behind my back, during our family vacation? I kept scrolling, trying to find the moment she slipped up. I found a message where she told him she was getting bored of playing nice, and that she was ready to do something about it. That was the moment I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. I took screenshots of everything, then quietly slipped her phone back. Where I found it. My hands were shaking, my mind racing, trying to hold it together. When she came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the bed with my arms crossed, staring at her like I was about to explode. She looked surprised, then annoyed, like I'd just ruined her entire day. She tried to brush past me, acting like nothing was wrong, but I didn't let her. I told her I knew everything about her texts, her lies, the affair. Her face twisted into this nasty look, and she started lying, of course. She said I was crazy, that I was making things up, and that I was seeing what I wanted to see. She called me paranoid, obsessive, insecure, the usual gaslighting bullshit she's thrown at me whenever she gets caught. I wasn't about to play her game. I laid the evidence out on the table, told her I knew she'd been cheating with Jake, and I wanted to hear her explanation. And her reaction. She just sneered and said, "So what? Maybe I'm bored of you, or maybe I just wanted some excitement. It's not like I owe you anything anymore." That's when I saw her real colors. She's always been bitchy, always had this way of making me feel like I was the problem. But hearing her say she'd cheat on me with my own brother, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I asked her how long she'd been doing this, and she shrugged like it was nothing. "Since we went on that stupid trip. It's not like I planned for it, but I sure as hell wasn't going to wait around for you to get your act together," she spat. That's when it hit me. Everything she said was just bullshit to cover her ass. All her lies, her sneaking around, her dirty text, she'd been doing it for months, probably from the moment we booked that vacation. I don't even remember what I said next. I was furious, hurt, betrayed. My head was spinning. This woman I loved, the woman I trusted with everything, had been lying and cheating on me right in front of my face, and with my own brother, no less. It was so surreal that I felt like I was watching some terrible soap opera. But it was real, and I had to face it. I told her she needed to pack her stuff and get out. I couldn't keep sharing a room with her knowing what she'd done. She scoffed and called me possessive, paranoid, and said I was acting crazy. That just made me angrier. I stayed up all night trying to process what I'd learned, and by morning I knew I couldn't stay with her anymore. I felt like a fool for trusting her, for believing in the marriage we had. I felt stupid for not seeing the signs earlier. But mostly I felt broken. I'd been blindsided by someone I thought loved me, and now I was facing the reality that our life was a lie. I never expected betrayal like this, especially not from her, and definitely not with my own brother. I kept thinking about that over and over. How could they do this to me? What did I do wrong? All I wanted was an honest, faithful marriage, and instead I got a betrayal so deep it cut right through my chest. After she left that morning, I stayed in the hotel room feeling numb. I kept staring at the door, waiting for her to come back and tell me this was all a mistake, that she loved me, that she'd never do something so stupid. But I knew better. I knew she was gone for good. I could see it in her eyes when she lied, in the way she dismissed everything I said. No, she wasn't coming back. Not now. Not ever, if I had any say in it. The next few hours were a blur. I called my brother, Mark, right after she left. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I needed to hear his voice, needed to hear that he was just as guilty as she was. I remember wanting to scream, to curse him out, but all I could do was tell him I knew everything and that I was done. He just mumbled some excuse about how it just happened, how it didn't mean anything, but I didn't want to hear it. I knew better. I saw the messages. I saw her. I spent the rest of the day trying to piece everything together, trying to process what I'd learned. It was like I'd been hit by a dump truck. My trust, my sense of security, everything was shattered. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. For years I thought Emily was my partner, my best friend, my confidant. Turns out she was a liar and a cheat, and so was Mark, my own brother. I felt disgusted with myself for not noticing the signs sooner. How could I have missed the clues? The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the mood swings, the lies. I also couldn't help but feel this deep sense of betrayal and rage. How dare she lie to me, cheat on me, and then blame me for being insecure? How dare Mark betray me like that? I kept asking myself if I was just an idiot for trusting the people closest to me. But then I remembered how she looked at me during that last fight, how she dismissed my concerns, how she told me I was paranoid. She convinced me I was crazy, and I almost started to believe it. Almost. Now I was left with this huge mess. I knew I couldn't stay in that hotel room forever, so I packed my stuff and checked out. I drove home, silent, not really knowing what I was feeling. Anger, sadness, confusion, all of it. I didn't want to face anyone, didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to be alone and figure out what I was going to do next. I kept replaying everything in my head, her sneaky texts, her sneering lies, her betrayal with Mark. It all felt like some cruel nightmare I couldn't wake up from. When I finally got home, I didn't even try to hide how I felt. I just sat on the couch, staring at the wall, feeling like I'd lost a part of myself. My stomach was in knots. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. How could I have been so stupid? Trust is supposed to be the foundation of a marriage, and I had been completely betrayed. I thought about confronting her again, about maybe trying to get some closure, but honestly, I was too exhausted. Every ounce of me just wanted to shut down and forget all of it. In the days that followed, I realized I had a choice to make. I could fight for her, try to save what's left of us, or I could walk away and start rebuilding myself. Honestly, I did see a middle ground. It was like I'd been punched so hard I couldn't stand up straight. I felt like I'd been betrayed not just by Emily but by my own brother, and that pain was worse than anything I'd ever felt. I kept asking myself if I could ever forgive her, if I could ever trust either of them again, and honestly, I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that I couldn't stay in this nightmare forever. Something had to change, and I knew I had to take the first step, even if it was the hardest thing I'd ever do. In the days that followed, everything felt like a blur. I was caught between anger, sadness, and a kind of numbness that wouldn't leave me alone. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that sneer, the messages from Mark, the betrayal all woven together like some twisted nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I kept going back to that moment in the hotel room, seeing her lying about everything, her bitchy attitude, the way she dismissed me like I was nothing. It made me question everything I thought I knew about her, about us. I started to realize I couldn't just sit around waiting for things to get better or hoping she'd come back and apologize. Honestly, I didn't even want her to come back. The thought of seeing her face again, hearing her lie to me, made my stomach turn. I knew I had to make some kind of plan. At first, I thought about confronting her again, demanding answers, demanding she tell me why she did it, why she cheated with my brother. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't change anything. It would just be more pain, more lies, more bullshit. So I decided I'd do what I should have done from the start, cut her out of my life completely. I called a lawyer that same day, started looking into divorce options, and took screenshots of everything I found. I wanted to be prepared. I didn't want her or Mark to pull some bullshit and think they could get away with it. I also contacted a few friends, people I trust, to tell them what happened. Not that I wanted sympathy, but I needed to get it off my chest. I needed someone to remind me that I wasn't crazy for feeling this way, that I wasn't overreacting. Meanwhile, Emily kept trying to contact me. She sent angry texts, blaming me for snooping, saying I was crazy and that I was ruining everything. She kept calling me possessive and paranoid, like I was the bad guy for catching her cheating. That only made me angrier. I wanted nothing to do with her at that point. Every message I saw from her was like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe I married someone so bitchy, so manipulative, so damn good at lying. It hit me hard that she had been willing to throw everything away just to have some secret fun with Mark. I kept thinking about the betrayal, about her sneering face, about how she'd lied to me for months. One night I finally broke down. I sat there in my apartment, staring at the wall, and realized I was exhausted emotionally. I'd been holding everything in, trying to be strong, but I couldn't anymore. I felt like I'd lost my sense of trust, my sense of security. I thought about everything I'd given to her, my time, my love, my loyalty, and it was all gone. Now, I wondered if I'd ever feel normal again, if I'd ever be able to look at her or my brother without feeling this burning rage inside. The pain was overwhelming, but I knew I had to start healing, even if it was just one step at a time. That's when I made the decision. I was done trying to salvage something that was beyond repair. I couldn't keep living in this lie, this betrayal, this nightmare. It was time to cut ties and focus on myself. I had to rebuild my life without her. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I'd be angry, I'd be hurt, and I'd probably carry this pain with me for a long time. But I also knew I couldn't let her or Mark define me. I had to take control, even if it meant starting all over again. I realized I deserved better than being betrayed by the woman I loved and the brother I trusted. That realization was the first step toward healing, even if it still felt like I was just at the beginning of a long, painful road. The decision to walk away wasn't easy, but deep down I knew I had to do it. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, not after what I'd uncovered. I started packing up my things slowly, methodically, trying to keep my emotions in check. Every item I packed felt like a small victory over the chaos that had consumed my life. I didn't want to leave things open-ended. I wanted closure, even if it was just for myself. I knew I had to focus on rebuilding what little of myself was left intact. I also made a firm choice to cut Emily out of my life completely. No more texts, no more excuses, no more trying to understand why she did what she did. I realized some things are unfixable, and the damage done was too deep. I told her that I wanted a divorce, that I wanted her to leave, and I made it clear I was done with her lies. She tried to argue, calling me crazy and overreacting, but I didn't care. Her words were empty, just more manipulation. I finally saw her for what she truly was, a selfish, manipulative woman who had no regard for me or our marriage. Once she left, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Relief because I was finally free from her lies, her bitchy attitude, her cheating, and her betrayal. But emptiness because everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and my family had been shattered. I spent days just trying to breathe, trying to process what had happened. I kept thinking about that trip, about the look in her eyes when she lied, about how she turned my own brother against me. It was like my whole world had collapsed, and I had no idea how to pick up the pieces. I also started seeing a therapist. I knew I needed help understanding how I got here, why I trusted so blindly, and how I could start healing from this betrayal. It was a long, painful process, but I knew I couldn't go through it alone. Talking to someone who was outside the mess helped me see things more clearly. I realized I'd been so blinded by love and trust that I overlooked all the warning signs. I'd ignored my gut because I wanted to believe in the best of her. That was my mistake, and I paid for it dearly. Meanwhile, I kept my distance from my family for a while. I couldn't face Mark, knowing what he'd done, or see Emily's face again without feeling this surge of anger and disappointment. The pain ran deep, and I didn't want to pretend I was okay. I let myself feel everything: anger, sadness, betrayal, and I slowly learned to accept that I couldn't change the past. What mattered now was how I was going to move forward. I knew I had to rebuild my sense of self, my trust in what's real, and my ability to love again someday. There's no easy way to go through something like this. No magic fix, but I learned a lot about myself in the process. I learned that even when everything is falling apart, I still have the strength to walk away. That sometimes love isn't enough. Trust matters just as much, if not more. And that betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to define me forever. I've got to keep moving forward step by step, even if every step is painful. I remind myself every day that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect, and maybe one day I'll find someone who gives me that again. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole nightmare changed me. At first, I was just angry, furious at her, at Mark, at myself for not seeing it sooner. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to see it differently. I began to understand that sometimes life throws things at you that you can't control, and all you can do is decide how to respond. For me, that meant choosing to walk away, to let go of the betrayal, and to focus on rebuilding what I'd lost. I won't pretend it's easy. Some days are still a struggle. I catch myself thinking about her, about everything that happened, and I get this ache in my chest that takes a while to go away. But I also remind myself that I'm better off without that kind of betrayal hanging over me. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to that little voice inside that says, something's wrong, instead of dismissing it. I've also learned that people can surprise you, sometimes in the worst ways, but sometimes in the best too. I've started rediscovering myself, piece by piece. Gone are the days of blind trust in a woman who turned out to be so manipulative. Now I try to focus on my own happiness, my own growth. I've reconnected with old friends, picked up new hobbies, and started to build a life that isn't centered around the mess she left behind. It's not perfect, but it's mine. I've realized that I don't need someone who lies to me, cheats on me, and manipulates me into thinking I'm the crazy one. This experience has taught me a hard, painful lesson. Trust is fragile, and it can be broken in an instant. But I also learned that I have the strength to survive betrayal, to pick myself up and move forward. The scars will always be there, but I refuse to let them define me. I refuse to let her or Mark steal any more of my happiness. So, if there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Because the truth might hurt, but it's better than living in a lie. You deserve honesty and loyalty, even if it takes time to find it again. I'm still healing, still rebuilding, but I know now that I am enough and I'll be okay. I always will be.